So I would like to start. I will give the floor first to the first group, which will be led by Ibrahim Mani, or Mani Ibrahim. I will let him introduce. Mani officially work with youth. He's officially someone, if you approach the council in Kensington or any other borough, he's one of the people the government or the system could easily direct you to him. So he is not just coming from a theoretical and the same like Intisar when we come to her after the police officer, after Philip. So he will give us the perspective of a policy from the government. And secondly, I know that, I'm sure many of you know him, he received phone calls, I think an average of 2, 3 at least from Sudanese family every day. I think he may tell you more than that. So we call him many times to help us with our own issues. And thirdly, he has a long experience. So whatever we'll hear from him will set the scene for the whole conversation. And just before I let you go, Mani, please make sure, be confident what we are doing here, although it's public, but we are not referring to any particular small community or a big community. Yes, this is affecting the Sudanese community, but it's affecting the whole Black and ethnic minority in London. There are issues which is to do with the Sudanese culture, which you are trying to tackle them, because most of the people here are either Sudanese or very much close to Sudanese, but we do share lots of similarities with other, if you call them minority, ethnic, whatever we call them, or Black or Muslim, whatever, we do share other similar issues with Somali, with Nigerian and others. So there will be lots of lessons learned. But I would really like you to try to encourage as many people to attend and to listen to the people, take notes, and then when it comes to question and answer, if you can tell me this is for Mani, I will ask him if this is a general question, and then we will see how we'll follow up. So I don't want to talk much. I already spoken in length. I just want to unmute Mani. So he will not struggle. So Mani, the floor is yours. And if you start with less than 30 seconds, introduce yourself, and then you take your 10 minutes. We're giving him 10 minutes. We've been very generous with him.
Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me though?
We hear you, yes, go ahead.
Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon and greetings to everyone. My full name is Abdelkarim Ibrahim. I'm employed by Westminster Council as a youth advocate and community engagement team. I've worked in various local authorities across London, and I've been doing this for 18 years. It's good that we're having this webinar today, covering this subject, because it's an issue which we're all concerned about, whether you're Sudanese or not. The problems of young people can affect us all in many ways. Now, Professor Allam did say that we're not to sort of highlight anyone in particular, but I'm just going to make a few references to Sudanese, if you don't mind, because it was based on the back of what happened to some of their youth. That's why we're having this webinar, even though it's about all young people. So brief background, and I have to mention this, the Sudanese diaspora in the UK first came en masse in the 1990s. Many of them left the country after the takeover by Omar al-Bashir in 1989. Families arrived to the UK either with young children or their children were born here. In all the time I've worked with the social services and working with youth, there has been hardly any references for support services coming from the Sudanese family. However, that picture has now changed over the past, I would say, 7, 8 years. And there's a good reason for that. And that's because the children that first arrived here during the early 90s have now become teenagers or in their early 20s, and they've integrated in the society. I have to say, though, that the majority of Sudanese youth are doing well. So I don't want to scaremonger people and put this picture out there that it's all going wrong, because I'm even getting text messages from people saying, why are Sudanese youth being targeted because of the recent incidents that happen. It's not that they're being targeted. This knife crime is national. It's all over the country and it's a problem everywhere. It's just that it's landed at the Sudanese community's doorstep recently, and that's why it's become an issue. So it is not just them, and they're not being targeted. It's a problem for all communities all over the country. Now, in my line of work as an urban youth specialist, I'm often faced with an ugly reoccurring scenario. Young people being excluded from school, going missing from home, being beaten, stabbed, or doing the stabbing themselves, and ultimately losing their lives. There's also issues with their parents' identity and culture. However, what I want to concentrate on here today is a problem that is increasingly becoming a regular occurrence. Some of you would have known it, and that is young teenagers missing from home. Almost every week on social media, be it WhatsApp or Facebook or whatever, there are loads of messages about young people missing from home, some as young as 12. And people are asking, well, how come all these kids are going missing? How come all these kids are going? What's going on? Why is all these young people going missing, especially from London? These missing episodes have steadily increased over the past 5 years. The difference, though, between missing and absent, I have to state that because somebody who's absent from home, his whereabouts is known. And perhaps there was an issue with his parents or his mother and his father, and he's gone to stay with a friend or an auntie. That's called absence. That means you're still in contact with the person. So yes, the worry is still there, but you know that they're about because you've heard from them. However, if they are titled missing, then that's a different category altogether. That means you have not heard from them. You don't know where they are. You have no idea, and they've not been seen by anybody. That is much more concerning. One can only imagine the stress that parents go through when one of their children goes missing. This is the ugly, sad, and depressing side of the work that I do. One of the reasons for these missing episodes from home is the issue of county lines. County lines is a big problem in this country, and it's considered to be a national health issue by the government. If you don't know what county lines is, this is an abbreviation from the government of what is county lines. County lines is the term used to describe a form of organised crime where criminals based in urban areas like London pressurize vulnerable people and children to transport, store, and sell drugs in smaller county towns. Now, the reason why they call it county lines is because most of the drug dealing gangs are based in London. They're all over England, but most of them are based in London. What they do is they get young people and they take them outside of London to places like Norwich, Ipswich, Birmingham, Manchester, even as far away as Glasgow, and they get them to sell drugs for them. They use young people as young as 12 because they are not easily identifiable by the police and the society. So if you see a young person, you wouldn't expect him of being a drug dealer. They can easily navigate themselves throughout the country without being detected. That is up until now, that is. And this is where I think, well, it's a fact that a bulk of the missing young people are missing because of county lines. They're usually taken after being groomed by the gangs who are using them to sell the drugs to a house somewhere outside of London where drugs are manufactured, and then they put them out on the streets to go and sell drugs for them. This is one of the major reasons that a lot of young people from London are going missing. It doesn't mean that everybody that goes missing is involved in drug dealing. I'm just telling you that this is one of the main reasons why a lot of young people go missing. So how do you know that as a parent or as an uncle or just a good neighbor that someone is being exploited, a young person is being exploited through these county lines drug gangs? There are some signs that you could look out for. New clothes, aside from them going missing, but when they return back, distancing themselves from old friends, they usually have 2 mobile phones. And they don't use a smartphone. They would use the cheap $9.99 phone that you can get in Tesco or whatever, which doesn't have any kind of social media on it at all. This is where they get the messages about drugs, and people want to buy drugs, and that phone is called a line, and people contact them through that phone to buy their drugs. So if you see a young person, or even if it's your own son, and he's got a smartphone and it also has one of these cheap burner phones, which I'll show you a picture during the break, and the phone keeps on ringing all the time, that is a sign that this person is involved in drug dealing. Looking tired, marks on their body that they try to hide, receiving calls from outside of their friends, just the general behavior has changed recently. You will see that. School, they'll be missing from school. They will show not interest in going to youth clubs and places like that, and they'll become much more secretive about where they're going and who they're keeping their friends with. That's not an exhaustive list, but it's one of the main ones. However, when I speak to regular people on the streets, either at work or just within social life, one of the frustrating things I find about their responses to what's going on is that that's not my problem. People tend to perceive what's going on in society, well, it's not me, it's somebody else. They see it as distant from themselves. When I talk to parents, again, in general, they say, yeah, I hear about these things going on, but it's those gangs, you know, those type of people. They've actually fallen for a stereotype which has been promoted by the media, that the people that are doing these things are of a certain type. They live in certain areas. There's a certain look to them, which to some extent, to a larger extent, it is true. However, the picture is changing because now we're getting people, young people that are coming from affluent families, from professional backgrounds, stable households, and they too are getting involved in it. So there is a shift in who we would assume would be into the drug dealing. And this really doesn't become an issue for many people until it's your daughter, your son, your nephew, your neighbor, your friend's son, your relative. That's when it really strikes home. That's when you really understand that this problem is real. And it's not going to go away soon unless we do something collectively about it. Now, your children, if they live in an area where this is happening, it may well be that they can avoid getting involved in that kind of lifestyle. And to all intents and purposes, most of them don't. But still, as a parent and as members of the community, your awareness about this subject is paramount. It's something that you should be aware of, even if your own children are not involved in this kind of lifestyle, because it's around you and it may happen in the future. It might not be happening now, and it may happen in the future. I've had many parents come to me and say to me, look, my boy is good. He's really well. He's got manners. He showed all the signs of a classical young person that's doing well. And then all of a sudden he changed, especially when they get to the age of 11, 12, when they're making that transformation from primary school to secondary school, and they're exposed to a lot more things that are taking place on the outside. What I say to, my advice to parents out there, and I have to be brief with this because this subject deserves a lot more time and a lot more detail. And unfortunately, we don't have the time to do that today, but I hope that we can have follow-up sessions, or you can actually contact me during the break or outside of this session if you feel that you have anything more that you want to say, or during the question and answers. But I would say, first of all, find out what's going on in your area and your community. Is your community affected by gangs and county lines? What kind of things are young people getting up to? Talk to your kids, because they're the best source of information for you. Because they see things that we don't see as adults, you know, because we're walking down the street, we don't understand what's going on because our minds are totally somewhere else. But they can tell you things that we don't know, things that are happening every single day right under our noses, and we don't see them. What kind of issues do they face? Talk to your neighbors. Don't make the mistake of thinking it's got nothing to do with me, even if your children are as good as gold. It's better to be prepared than not. Find out who the local support services are in your local authority. And by that, I mean frontline organizations that support families, young people, youth clubs, course facilitators, you know, safer neighborhoods teams. We have a police officer, Alistair Phillips. He's here today, so he's going to give us his perspective after I finish talking. Does your child's school, do they do a coffee morning? Coffee morning is a good place to kind of talk about issues. If they don't have a coffee morning, why don't you initiate one? It's good for you to communicate your problems, your thoughts and your feelings, and to, even if you don't have anything to say, to hear the thoughts of others. Your local housing officer, that should be someone that you should, you know, speak to if you feel that you need more information or you've got something to say to them. The local authority, all local authorities should have regular updates about community safety and where to go and how to contact them. Familiarize yourself to these groups or individuals. It's far better to work with others than to work alone. I'll just end with, I don't know if many of you are familiar with the concept of, there's a bird in West Africa amongst the Akan people, and it's called the Sankofa. And Sankofa actually has a concept behind it. It means that you have to go back in order to go forward. Now, how does that apply to what I'm talking about? The issues that we face in our families, in our communities, in our lives, sometimes are rooted in things that were taking place long time ago or recently. So what we tend to do as citizens in this society is we look at the symptoms of problems rather than looking at the root cause. And that's what I want to get across today, because there's reasons why these things are happening in the society today. It didn't just come out of the middle of nowhere. There's a process that it went through for us to get to where we are, and we have to understand what that process is so that we can go back, deal with it, and then come back forward again. That's all I've got to say. So thanks.
Thank you very much, Mani. That's very good start. And thank you very much for laying the ground. And as you said, there's so much we can do. There's so much we have to do. And بس in Arabic for الناس اللي بتتابع فينا، بس عايز اوضح حاجه. بنتكلم بالانجليزي دي لانه ما بيعرفوا عربي، فاحنا حنخلوه يتكلم بالانجليزي. لكن الناس الموجوده دي كلها، وده احنا عايزين بس نوصل للناس الحاجه الموجوده ويسمعوها ويعرفوا مبدئيا انه يتواصلوا مع انه يعرفوا شنو الموجود شنو، وحنجي للاسئله دي كلها. لكن لو اي ذول عنده مشكله في الاسئله، ممكن يشوف اي حد معه في البيت حاليا يترجم له عشان نقدر نرجع نودي الاسئله. I was just talking about the English language and so on.
بنحلم بفضاء أوسع، بنحلم بزمن أجمل، بلاد ميلاد، بلاد ميلاد. بنحلم بفضاء أوسع، بنحلم بزمن أجمل، بلاد ميلاد، بلاد ممتد لحد حدود الحد، وطن لا فيه هم لا غم، فقط نسل